Why men who take women out on expensive dates are actually bad providers. Oh boy, this one's going to ruffle some feathers for sure. We're going to have a really good time talking about this. So, once again, this is going to be controversial, probably for a lot of people. Um, and it's because so many men and women, probably more so women, but really men as well, don't understand provision. They do not understand what provision really is. It's so much more. And I'm just talking about financial provision. Okay. So there's certainly so much more than financial provision, but just talking about financial provision, there is so much more to it than just buying nice stuff for a woman. Okay. And we live in a very consumer minded society, at least in the West, very consumer minded society, which means we are consuming stuff, whether that's experiences or physical stuff, cars and shit that we don't need, rather than investing. Okay, investing in ourselves, investing in our families, investing in our education, becoming financially secure. So most people in our society, most men and women, I think there's a majority of men and women that live paycheck to paycheck. Okay. Most men and women are not properly planning for the future. If there is another Great Recession or something worse than the Great Recession, which is coming, by the way, people are going to get totally wiped out. And so the reason that men that are focused on taking women out on expensive dates are actually bad providers is because they are focused on consumption, in the moment consumption, rather than true planning and investing in themselves for the future. Now, is a woman who's actually not brainwashed and knows how the world works, is she going to feel safe with a man who is not truly financially planning for the future? A man who is spending for the moment, who's spending hundreds of dollars on expensive dates in the moment and not really preparing. I think this, I'm gonna talk some financial numbers. This is gonna be fun for some people. It's not gonna be fun for other people. It's too bad for those ones. I think it's like 15% of Americans, right? We'll talk about Americans because most people watching this will be Americans. 15% of Americans make over $100,000 a year. After taxes, what's that going to be, like $60,000, $65,000? I don't know. In Canada, it'd be even worse because we're basically a communist country up here. So we get completely destroyed with our income tax. But let's say $60,000, $65,000 left for $100,000 income. Only 15% of men, around maybe 15 to 20%, are making that amount. And a huge percent of those men are over 50 years old, right? So if you're looking at income earners kind of in their 20s and in their 30s, 35, 40, it's going to be less than 10% of men. It's like 5 to 10% of men. And of those 5 to 10% of men, how many of them are actually truly masculine, right? How many of them actually have solid boundaries for a woman that won't just do whatever a woman wants and submit to her standards, right? So we're talking about a very small percentage of men that are in this income bracket and are actually masculine. So let's say that a man is going out once per week for an expensive date, either with his girlfriend that he's met or just some, he's going on one date per week, just random date per week. That's and let's say it's a $200, right, for the expense of getting there and the date, the food and the tip and the taxes and the drinks and everything. $200. That's $10,000 a year. $10,000 a year just for once per week. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for someone that's only making $60,000 to $65,000 after taxes, right? Especially when you're considering that a lot of the money of that $60,000 to $65,000 is already going to a mortgage or rent or, car payments or whatever, instead of it going to something useful, like investing in himself or investing in her in some kind of way, whatever that looks like, investing in, the stock market, investing in on paying off the home, investing in paying off the car payments, investing in getting out of debt in some kind of way, investing in, having savings for your future children, investing in, you know, unforeseen medical expenses that can come up, investing in a business that pays dividends, or investing in other people's businesses that pay dividends, right? That's what being a good provider actually looks like, because that is considering the future to properly invest in, so that your family will be taken care of, with ideally preparing for many different eventualities as well, right? Like hard times or whatever, one person gets sick. But most men are not planning for that. Most men are not planning for that. How can a woman submit to a man who is supposedly a provider just because he takes her out on expensive dates? Who cares? When he's not actually preparing properly, when he's not actually doing his job to invest in his family and protect his family from things that can happen. Okay. So for me, like, I'll give people an example. I don't know, 80, even I'm making very good money now, but even when I was making like $100,000 a year, less than $100,000 a year, something like 80% of my income was going into savings for something, to pay off our house, right? I paid off my house in less than 3 years, $300,000 house. Why? Because I was saving everything, and I already had like $100,000 saved up. This is important. This is important because a lot of women are going to end up stuck if your focus is on like, oh, he's putting in so much effort into this date to shower me with showing me how much he can provide for me. That kind of mentality, those women are often going to be stuck with men who aren't actually real providers. They're consumers, and they're willing to blow their money on stuff that doesn't matter. Now, I'm not saying, to be clear, I'm not saying men should be total cheapskates and never do never do anything fun, not take women out, always living for the future, never for the moment, because that's not really living, right? That's a huge problem as well. But I am saying that there does need to be a healthy balance, and most men today, and women, but we're talking about men because men providers, are imbalanced because they're focused way too much in the moment, focused too much on consumption. So when issues happen, they can easily get wiped out, and then they're very, very financially insecure. My focus in my family, focus number one, is not to fulfill my wife's desires. Now, and to be clear, now I can fully provide for like so many of my wife's desires, it doesn't matter. But that's because I have an excess of income that most men don't have, right? For most men, they're not going to be able to fulfill every woman's desires if they are doing their job properly, which is focusing on necessities first, which means focusing on investing first, investing in investments that pay dividends in some way, whether that's in the stock market or whether that's a personal business or whatever, right? Or education, investments that pay dividends, so that later down the road, they are so financially secure that they can actually fulfill a lot more of a woman's desires because they've got everything else handled. Okay. So my focus in my family is making sure that we are extremely financially secure. My house is fully paid off. We have a ton of money in a variety of different assets. I also got a whole bunch of cash. Right? No debts at all. Because I'm focused on being a competent, responsible provider. I don't care about taking my woman out on expensive dates until that stuff is taken care of. Now, women might be saying, Yeah, well, I want a man that's really rich and can do both. Okay, great. So that's a very tiny minority of men who are that wealthy and are actually really dominant and are just going to be emasculated, and where a woman can control him. Are you in that 1%, 2% of women? What makes you in that 1 or 2% of women? Why would that kind of man want you? I'm not saying you can't have him. I'm not saying you can't have that kind of man right off the bat, but what makes you worthy of that kind of man? I know that women that work with me in my academy program that are learning how to let go of control, fully open up, express their needs and feelings vulnerably, fully honor their heart, never comply, never judge, never lead, heal the trauma that they have been carrying since childhood so that they are just radiant. That doesn't mean they're happy all the time, but they're fully in their heart, fully in their feelings, just sharing themselves, expressing themselves, um, not being a drain on a man's energy, but instead inspiring him to be more. Yeah, when women are able to make those shifts, so many of which we help women do, yes, you might be able to attract that small percentage of men. But if you're not there, then you need to have more realistic expectations for yourself, because why would that kind of man choose you? And I'm not trying to be mean to women. Like I honestly want to help you. I want to help you see this so that you're not wasting your time. First of all, not wasting your time holding out on a man that you're not going to find because you don't actually know how to attract that caliber of man, number one. And then number two, that you're not attracting these consumer-based men that sort of look like providers on the surface because they're capable of spending a ton of money on you, but have very little ability to properly budget and plan and invest and save and consider the future and consider eventualities and make necessities, financial security, the priority. Okay, this is really important stuff. I know so many women. I know so many women, both like clients and just in my life, that are with men that have this consumer mindset that, yeah, they'll take them out on expensive dates. That's great. And I know a lot of them that have their families have been totally wiped out as soon as something bad happens. As soon as something bad happens, because they weren't prepared. Because the man was failing in his job as a financial provider. It doesn't just mean spending money. It means saving it, investing it, and budgeting it properly. So my advice for men, I don't know how many men are actually going to be on here, but my advice for men is definitely stop listening to any woman who's talking about, oh, you need to take a woman out on expensive dates to impress her in any kind of way. Certainly not for the first date, but even throughout the dating phase. Like if you have tons of money, okay, great. Like, throughout the dating phase, sure, you can do expensive dates because have fun living your life because you got all the other stuff handled. But if you don't, if you're still building, if you don't have a net worth, if you don't have a paid off house, if you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars in investments yet to have that financial security, then that should be the focus. That should be the focus. And you don't need to spend a whole bunch of money to attract a high quality feminine woman. High quality feminine women don't give a shit about you taking them out on expensive dates. Entitled women who are actually quite masculinized, they might look feminine, they might act feminine in certain ways, but they're actually not really feminine. They're the only kinds of women that actually care about that stuff. The kind of women, the feminine women that I know, are super chill. They're really easygoing. And if they have a high feminine self-worth, then they do want a man that puts in effort. Right, of course, but there's a difference between taking a woman, like effort doesn't equal money, okay? Effort is about actually being a man enough to be the one that sets up all the plans, to have the logistics all set so that she doesn't have to be thinking, so that she doesn't have to be planning stuff. And yeah, do something nice for her, but it doesn't need to be expensive in any kind of way. If a masculine man can just bring himself, his great energy, right, his focus, his attention, complimenting her, taking care of her, considering her in small ways, just by being chivalrous, um, focusing on opening her up. All of that kind of stuff really matters, right? That's what chill, cool, feminine women actually care about, right? They don't care about the other bullshit. They really don't. And I've met hundreds of really cool feminine women that were just like that. They didn't care about expensive dates. You don't need expensive dates. I'm just reading Tammy's commentary. Paid for 2 houses in full, brand new car, paid in full, did it on your own, fantastic. Never had a mortgage or a car, great credit score. Go for a romantic walk in nature, go bike riding. I don't want anything monetary from a man. 90% of the time, a man spends a fortune on dinner he wants. Yeah. So, and I'll say this, Tammy, too. Like that. So that, first of all, it's fantastic. Congratulations. You're in like the, 1 or 2% of people that actually are really, doing relatively well financially and being responsible with the money that they're making and all that kind of stuff. It's not that you need a man. Like, obviously you don't need a man to pay for stuff financially and everything, because you can take care of yourself, but you do still need that to fully feel feminine. It's not that yes, you can provide for yourself, but a man should still be paying for whatever dates you are going on, whatever amount of money that ends up costing. Definitely do not spend any money on dates. That is a man's job. And even though, this video is a bit of a twist from what I normally talk about, that I might not get as many women cheerleaders as usual, it's still very important that men are still doing their job, which is leading everything, which means providing everything, whatever that is. Doesn't necessarily have to be an expensive date, but whatever he is doing, he's in charge of it. And you definitely shouldn't settle for less than that. As soon as you get into any, and I'm not saying you are suggesting this, I don't know, but as soon as you get into any kind of 50-50 thing whatsoever, well, now you're dealing with an emasculated man. A dominant man, a masculine man, a healthy man, he's going to want to pay for everything. He's not necessarily going to want to spend tons of money on consumption, because it's not actually necessary, unless he has tons of extra money and it's not a problem. But he's going to want to pay for it because that feels good for him. Feels good for a masculine man to take care of a woman financially, even if she's able to fully take care of herself, regardless, right? And so, and so don't, even if you can do it all yourself, don't at all. Not even 1%. How many people are in the academy? Great question. So we've got 290 people in the academy, I think, at this point. Fantastic group of both men and women who are making these incredible shifts together. And just may as well just fully answer this question, or go a bit more into it. It's a polarized community, right? Which means all of the men are leading all of the women. All of the women are letting go and learning how to express their needs and feelings vulnerably, how to fully open up, how to not comply, how to truly submit in a beautiful, vulnerable way, how to fully receive a man's provision, a man's advice, a man's leadership, a man's direction, a man's reassurance, everything, right? We create this environment, this container for men and women, so that they can practice polarized communication and polarized energy and end up healing and shifting so much faster than just giving them information and then trying to figure it out themselves, right? That's why that is such a huge part of the reason why we get incredible results in the academy. And the men and women that we work with are amazing, right? The women are so just working so much on being vulnerable and opening up and letting go, and it's just beautiful, and it's inspiring. That's what keeps me working way harder than I should. And the men are also fantastic, learning how to step up and lead these women and get their hearts online and lead from a place of devotion and care. It's just a really beautiful place to be. All right, one more thing I'm going to read here. My ex-fiance loves spending money on himself, the newest phones, newest jet ski, new truck, but I was always worried about the bills, making sure they're paid. Yeah, right. So, and that's even one step worse than a man who's spending all this consumption on a woman without truly investing, right? Like that because now it's selfish. He's spending all this money on himself and he's not investing for the future, right? So that's kind of the worst the worst kind of man that you could have. His mindset is all selfish and it's all short-term consumption based. And then I'd say the second worst type of man is a man that is, thinking about the woman, generous, spending his money, kind of looks good in a way superficially, except that he's got no money in the bank account. He's got no investments. He's got no plan if anything goes wrong. He hasn't been budgeting. He's living paycheck to paycheck. He doesn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars for when you have children and there's going to be massive expenses, or if medical bills come up, or if there's a big recession and he loses his job, and he doesn't have that money to pay dividends either, because he doesn't have any investments, right? So his money isn't working for him. That's not a provider. That's not a provider either. The kind of man, as the man you want, is he's thinking in the future, and all of that is his provision. That's a beautiful act of provision for a woman, so that she doesn't have to think of the future, so that she can live in the moment and just let go and have fun and be in her body and just express her desires and express her needs, because she knows she's got a man who is taking care of all of that other stuff. Right. And I want every woman listening to this to be able to have that kind of man. And if you've already got a man that's not that man, then being that kind of woman who can inspire him to be that kind of man by you learning how to communicate for both types of women, by being the kind of woman that can express her needs and express her feelings and express her desires vulnerably, that can ask for help, that can, let go of all control, because you're not going to be able to lead a man into being that kind of man. You can only do it by learning to let go of control, but doing it in a way that is safe, doing it in a way that is self-honor in your heart, learning to do it in a way that inspires him to step up and want to take care of you and become a more responsible man who's thinking in the future, who's doing his job properly as a true both financial provider and provider in all ways. Women who are interested in learning how to do that, you have to learn how to truly become embodied in your feminine energy and master your feminine communication. What we teach women, both in the academy, right? So we got our academy program, full lifetime program, helps you transform everything, full support. But for people who are like, oh, this is a really interesting video, I really want to learn more. What's this guy talking about? What's this guy teaching? Come to my masterclass. Okay, it's only $47. It's affordable for basically everybody. And what we're doing is we are teaching you feminine communication and teaching you how to inspire a man to step up and be a better version of himself. Not by manipulating him, but by you just being so radiant, so in your heart. We're going to teach you those communication skills, and then we're going to role play it. We're going to role play and show you exactly what it looks like, what it feels like. We'll show you that path. We'll get you literally shave off years of your learning curve so you can learn how to be this kind of woman. And I don't care who you are. I don't care where you are starting from in your journey. As long as you're willing to be responsible, you can make those shifts. There's nothing different about you in that respect than any of our other clients or anyone else who's joined our masterclass and made incredible shifts. You can do that too, but you need to make the choice. You need to make the choice to change. And that starts by booking that spot. 2 hours with me. We're going to have an amazing time. Go to relationshipofyourdreams.com, relationshipofyourdreams.com, and book your spot for our masterclass. And I will see you there. And you're going to learn so much. And on the other side, you're going to have so many tools and so many understandings to start making these shifts in yourself and either start attracting that dominant man who's an incredible financial provider, or inspiring your man to become that kind of man. relationshipyourdreams.com, and I'll see you on the next masterclass.